Okay, welcome back everyone to, I don't know what part we're on anymore. In fact, it's been a while since I made my last video, and I apologize if you've been following along. I had COVID, and then I had to go through some other things, and yeah, you know the drill. Here we are though. We've been working on this Angular app, which is a character counter. And my goal for this series was, let's make this app in Angular, let's make it in Python using Flask, and then let's also make it in ASP.NET Core MVC. So this is the Angular piece, and today we're going to talk about routing. And yeah, stay tuned for this. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. That way you don't miss any future content that, might find useful. You never know. And if you're new to this particular series here, I have a playlist down below. You can follow along from the very beginning, which you might want to do. And so we're talking about routing, and when I created my project initially, we added routing. That's one of the things the Angular CLI asks you when you create a new project. But if you didn't hit yes, don't worry, you can still add these things manually. It might just take some time. And so notice here I have this app routing module.typescript, and also in the app module.typescript, where we put everything together into our package, I have this app routing module in the imports array. And if we look at Angular's tutorial, I guess you could call it, pretty much this is all you need to do. You need to add that app routing module to the imports, and then we also need to create our app routing module, which, if I can remember, I'll link this down below if you want to copy and paste this. But this part right here, this routes empty array, is what we really care about, because that's going to hold all of our different routes and our paths and what component that path makes up. So let's go back to the app routing module, and in the routes we can go ahead and name some paths. So we're going to make a new object. The path is going to be, let's just say main, and then the component is going to be our counter component. And so the idea is whenever our path is /main, we're going to see this character counter like we do right now. But we need to first define, once we switch paths, where do we display these different components? So when I go to /main, where do I put this character counter component that we're seeing right now? And so we can do this back in the app component, and then instead of app counter, which is that counter component that we made the main path, let's make this router outlet, and then also a closing router outlet, like that. And now if we look back at our app, we don't see the counter component anymore. But if we go to /main, we now see it, because that's the path that we defined, main, and the component we defined for that path is this particular counter component. And the reason we see this H1 is because that's going to be there no matter what. Just whatever gets outputted from our path goes right into this router outlet. So you can think of it as just replacing what's right here. So something else I wanted to do was add an about component, and that way we can have like an about page. So what I'm going to do is open a new command line down here and cd to our project, and then ng-gc, we're going to generate a component called about. I'm going to delete the spec.typescript file, and here we can just put maybe like an h2 and just say about page for now. This can be a placeholder. So now that we have this about component, let's add that to our list of routes. So let's create a new route object. The path is going to be about, and the component is going to be the about component. And watch now what happens instead of /main. If we go to /about, it's going to replace the router outlet with the about component. And that's why we see that H2 that we put in there. But I think what I'm going to do, instead of this path being main, it's just going to be empty. And then if we just go to localhost 4200, it's just going to show that counter by default. Okay, so in the next video, now that we have our paths and stuff, how do we get buttons to send us to different paths? That way we can display different components based on that path. Hopefully this all made sense. If not, try to follow along and maybe stuff will click. But just to reiterate, basically what's happening is we have these different paths, and these different paths are going to show different components. But where they show these components is wherever we put this router outlet. And in our case, this router outlet is put in this app.component.html file. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope to see you in a future video. And in the next one, we're going to talk about buttons to send us to different paths and show different components. So stay tuned for that.